What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Stardust here. Welcome back to another episode of Community Voices, the show where I talk to members of the community and we get their thoughts on Avengers as well as just their general self. I have Burst here with me today. Burst, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you. You're the third person now to have asked me. Third. So we had Hero, we had Andy, and we had yourself. So there we go. So for everyone wondering, you know who the nice ones are that come onto this show, all right? So
Exactly.
one thing I've already noticed, and if you don't mind me making this comment, is that you're a very soft-spoken person. So when it comes to the world of content creation, what made you think I'm going to go into this strange environment? You know what I mean? What made you think I'm going to be a YouTuber or just a general content creator?
All right. So, funny story. I was actually in another person's stream just watching, and I asked this question of like, "Oh, how'd you start?" And they were like, "Oh, da 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 da." Was starting making videos. I've been on YouTube for like I don't know 3 or 4 years at that time, and he was like, "Hey, I can help you if you want to learn how to do that stuff." So I kind of had somebody teach me the foundation of how to like make videos, kind of how to use the algorithm to your advantage and stuff like that. And over time, like I just started doing more research and I was like, wow, this could actually be a pretty cool thing if you keep up with it. Now, of course, consistency is key with YouTube. So it can be a little bit of bouncing back and forth. But pretty much, yeah, that's kind of how it started. I just got somebody that took me under their wing, I guess you could say.
Are you still friends with them now? Like, do you know them now, or is that sort of like a friendship that's kind of cut off?
That's a they're no longer in communication. Let's just say that.
Okay, so fair enough. So, well, I won't. Okay, I won't dive into that bit too much then, because that sounds like a weird spot. So, well, okay. So, what was the first thing that you decided to do on YouTube then? Because obviously, you've been around, I believe, before Avengers time, right? So, what was it first for Burst?
So the first kind of content I started making usually was like music videos. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with those, but there are videos basically you just take from animes, you make them into some cool effect, or you just transition them to the beat of the music, and people like those. So I tried starting out with that, and then I gradually started going into like Xenoverse 2, which is still getting updates to this day for some reason when they could be making a third game, but yeah, I started off there, and I gotta say that was probably where I saw the most success so far.
That's pretty interesting. So then what made you decide to move away from anime music videos then? Because obviously normally when YouTubers or content creators in general see quite a growth on a specific video, normally the algorithm will beat you with a stick if you decide, let me try other things. so
Right.
so what was it that kind of made you think, okay, I'm going to branch out, I'm going to do different things, going to focus on gaming a little bit more?
I guess I just when you get so many copyright claims on your videos and eventually you get that one copyright strike, even though it's technically fair use, that's where you start getting concerned. And personally, I was just like, I don't want to take that risk. If I've already started a foundation of a channel, I don't want to take the risk of it being ultimately just taken away from me one day. So you won't find all of the anime music videos that I tried to do on there, but there are some that are on there that were just claimed, so I left them up. But it is a risky business doing music videos because they can instantly snipe that. So that transition into being more of like a discussion news update channel felt more realistic for me, and I just stuck with it for the game that I started covering at that time, and it just felt more cohesive too. It was an interesting experience.
So obviously you have now sort of ventured into kind of Avengers content. You do a couple of streams on Dead by Daylight and stuff like that. You've done some trailer. You've posted trailers for Spider-Man and Wolverine. So like, what would you say that you are a Marvel channel? Would you say you're a variety channel? Like, if people who have never watched this, like, have never seen any of your stuff before, but have watched this show for the first time, how would you like sell your channel? If you know what I mean, like, what category would you put yourself in?
I probably would say variety. It's depends on what's fresh at the time, right? So like for example, in my brief period when I was going from anime type of gaming into more Marvel stuff. It was like a transitioning period of that's what's popular, like Miles Morales, for example. That game was booming for a lot of reasons, and that's where I saw a lot of people start, kind of sliding into wanting to view different types of content. So depending on like what would happen going forward, like let's say I don't know, Gotham Knights came out tomorrow, you would definitely see me start covering that to a degree. I still would cover current topics that are on my channel, maybe not as much, but they would still be there. It's just one of those things where it's like you still want to have like insight as to what's going on around you and not just like in the bubble you stay in, if you get what I'm saying.
For sure, yeah. You don't want to put too many eggs in one basket. Yeah, no, I get that. I think that like with YouTube is if you can't. So for me, for example, I started off as an Avengers channel, and you'll notice just by looking at my channel that if I say, even stay in the realm of Marvel, it doesn't do as well because people expect you to be the Avengers guy. So like, would you say there's like as being a variety channel, would you say there's kind of anxiety with doing a different topic? So say for example, you do an Avengers video one day, right? Absolutely bangs, everyone loves it, yay, burst. And then you go, okay, right, I've done that, let's do a Dead by Daylight stream, and people jump on that, but it's not doesn't do as well. Does that give you a bit of anxiety? Do you kind of like get a bit worried? Like what's your thought process with that?
That I used to have that thought process. It used to bother me a lot, but I don't know. I found that when you start developing like a basis of people that will watch your videos regardless, I feel like that kind of subsides that anxiety. You're like,
Mm,
okay, at least I know I have a decent view of people that are going to watch this video through or at least just click on it, right? And I kind of have those feelings more with the streams. Like as far as the videos go, I've always had this philosophy since I started. If it hits 50 or more views, that's 50 people. And if you look at it like 50 people in a room, that's not a bad bunch, right? And if you go anything over 50, that's like a win in my book. I've always liked that philosophy because it just relaxes me a little bit more.
mm.
Streams, I've always found like the same people will show up for like let's say the watch parties I do. I appreciate that on a grand scale that other people might not, get, but it's just like having those same people come for months all together has been crazy.
I agree. Yeah, it's like having that sort of base of your community and stuff like that. Because don't get me wrong, it's always nice seeing new people pop in because it's like cool new people to interact with my content. But like for example, Ethan or Tristan on High Rulers Discord, people like that who always pop in, say hello. Black Wakanda being another one, Jazzy. It's like it's always nice seeing those people because it's like okay, I'm still at least the people who watch me on all of it still enjoy what I do now, and that's always that is a good feeling, and I don't blame you for that at all. So let's go into kind of more outside the bubble of content creation. So I don't mean specifically your stuff. So what channels inspired you to make content? So obviously you watched that individual that you asked for advice. Was there any other people that you kind of were watching that you were like, yeah, I like this stuff a lot?
All right, so at the time when I was a lot younger, this is like when I was fucking 16, right? There was a channel that goes by the name of Super Saiyan Cabby 28, which I'm still pretty cool friends with him today. We play sometimes on games. Then there's a couple people, Rhyme Style and C Reacts. A few of you might know who they are if you're like in any kind of niche in the gaming anime type space.
Mm.
Um, they definitely were starters for me just to see kind of how they ran their videos and how they organized themselves when they were talking. Like I kind of used that infrastructure to begin, and then I kind of just gradually made it my own. You know what I mean? And I think that's pretty much how I would say I've developed the confidence to still like make videos and just how I talk and demonstrate myself in each video, if that makes sense.
For sure, yeah, no, that's great. Like, I love hearing sort of like a build up in confidence and stuff like that. So, if there was any YouTuber who you haven't collaborated with yet, all right, or just in general, what YouTubers would you go for? Now, before you answer this, for anyone who's watching this that may be a YouTuber themselves and maybe have wanted to work with Burst in the past, do not take offense to this answer. I imagine you're on the list somewhere.
All right, before I answer, is this in the Avengers community or just overall?
We'll do overall, because it's still about you.
Let's see. Overall, that's a hard question. There's a lot of people I would like to work with. I mean, I how do I break this down? Between like trying to keep up with anime games, it's pretty hard. Like most of them are fighting games, and you need to be a top tier fighter for those. But I would say there's this guy named Afro Senju. Um,
Oh, I love Afro.
yeah,
Sorry.
he's pretty funny. Yeah, all good, all good. But he's pretty funny and he seems pretty entertaining. And just overall, I mean, he's not like he's pretty open on Twitter and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I if I had an opportunity, I would jump at that so fast. And I mean,
I'd love that.
between like all the stuff that I've heard, like when I was very deep in that side of the community for anime games, like there's been talks of other people who have had certain things going on. But I mean, we can dive deep into those things if you want to go back on a video of mine. If you want to go check out what I'm talking about, there's a video about it. You just have to find it. I won't tell you which, but you gotta find it.
Oh, okay, cool. So have you all want to sort of get more context of what Burst is talking about? There's a video somewhere on his channel. He's gonna have to do some digging.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds.
There's always drama in the anime gaming community. I would say a lot more than you think. There's a lot.
Do you say there's more than? Would you say there's more drama in that community than the Avengers community?
Oh, definitely.
Jesus,
Definitely.
Jesus. Okay, right. Well, in that case, then we'll shift over to Avengers a little bit. So, obviously, you're a Marvel fan. I think that goes without saying. You wouldn't play this game if you weren't, But would you say that, so give me your thoughts before the game came out, when the game launched, and now. So, obviously, those are three specific different periods of time. So, for me, for example, hyped, pretty enjoying it, and now I'm kind of a bit burnt out about it. So, what's kind of your views on it?
Let's see. Beginning, concerned, middle, beta, gotta play it. I would say hyped, still concerned. Currently now I'm a little bit more relaxed, but more attentive, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Those might be some interesting words, but it's just I look at this game on a much deeper level than I think most people will, which is probably a bad thing, but it's just how I've taken this game so far since last May when it was originally supposed to come out.
How would you think that, like, okay, so obviously, I would say that the community as a whole has a good insight into kind of how we have like essentially chats with the devs on a weekly basis. Not all of them, but Andy, Phil, Layla, etc. We have avenues where we can say howdy on their Discord and so on and so forth. Do you think that like that makes a difference to how you view the game now? Because like you said, you're more you think of the game on a deeper level. Do you think that that has something to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, like the communication effort has always been like the biggest thing I pay attention to. Like, I'm glad that they have these different social places that they can gather information or just talk to people. I still think I'm looking for a little bit more interaction for people that are not as attentive to the game. So like let's just use the word casual players. Like that's always been my thing as a casual player. I feel like more people are not as knowledgeable about certain things that happen with this game. And that's more or less the reason that they just don't care enough to, participate in going in a Discord because one, they don't have a Discord or they just don't care about it. Or they don't really care about Reddit or they don't care about going to look at every newest video that somebody makes, right? I've always felt like they need to find a way to balance that and give, casual players in game more ways to feel like they can know what's going on and not be so clueless about it. Because I'm sure if you've seen a lot of people ask the same questions and more often than not, some of them have an answer to them, but they just don't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I've always suggested like any news that they put on Twitter. So obviously they posted as we're recording this, they posted about gear upgrading. and stuff like that in a nice sort of easy to explain it kind of way. So they were essentially like gear upgrading, reworks, late game focused. We hear you. This will be done before the end of the year. Nice and easy. You could easily put that on the news tab in game. Like, in my opinion, put a picture up it, put the caption, you're done, right? So people who log into the game, who don't look at Twitter, don't look at the dev streams, don't go on Discord, will be able to kind of go, oh, cool, that's nice, that's exciting. Because there's some people who do just pop on the game and don't bother with all that stuff. And I think that, like, as a community, like, we're quite in that bubble of, like, sometimes we forget that there aren't people who are on these discords and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it is weird to
Right,
sort of
right.
think about. Like, um, I don't know I can't remember what it's called, but it was like the sell list, like how many games have sold this month, sort of thing. Um,
Mhm.
and obviously it's doing quite well, but those people will probably never hear from because. I mean, to be honest, if I was able to talk to them, I'd tell them not to join anyway. But like, so that's yeah, no, I can totally see your sort of perspective of looking at it from the outside in. So how would you sort of feel like obviously the roadmap has come out, very slow year we've got until kind of, people speculate November time for the raid and Spider-Man, maybe December for Spider-Man. What do you think of like the roadmap? How do you feel like that'll affect content creators and just well yourself primarily?
Let's talk about the content creator part first. So I do think that it leaves a very dry spot for a lot of people, right? I don't see anybody really revisiting old topics like the past events we've already had. I mean, at most somebody will make a tweet, right, and say, "Oh, these are things that we had before. You should try and maybe grind out if you're a new player." That at most that's probably what people do. But until like November, December time, I really don't see anybody having the ability to cover anything super substantial that'll be anything big and blossoming for the channel, right? Because as far as build videos go, in my opinion, I feel like those really are going to be staggered until the raid comes out, and then you might want to make, that's where it's going to be booming. You're going to have people that are going to be needing a lot of information on that stuff because they want to take on this newest challenge. But as far as like build videos and stuff like that go and updates, it's going to be really dry. And I feel really sorry about that for a lot of people because I know like a lot of people may have a channel dedicated just to the game or, that's something that they're very interested in covering and they just can't. It's a very unfortunate thing. And even in the, weekly blogs we may get, they may not be super substantial either until we get actual closer to those dates that the content is supposed to release. So
Mm.
it's kind of a if and thing with it. And I just don't see it panning out well. At least for myself, I know that at least I have, Spider-Man PS5 to theorize over now. And believe me, there are a lot of things you can theorize about just off that little trailer, just saying. But yeah, it's
Spicy.
gonna be a rough couple of months at the very bare minimum, a rough couple of months, at least for creating content, unless you find some way to do something very innovative. And I'll be looking out because that'll be interesting to see if anybody really tries anything new that hasn't been done before, if they can. So
I
that
I have been looking because I agree with you that unless you do something kind of completely new, there's not going to be many people that are going to click on that. Me and High Ruler and Calix has mentioned this in the past as well. I've seen this really cool conspiracy theory that like I want to do a video on one day, but I need to get more information on it. I'll spoil it here just because why not? But basically, if you have a melee build, right, so you're stacked with might but you need like my ISOs. The amount of precision ones you're gonna get, or the amount of valor ones you're gonna get, are mental compared to the might. But if you switch it up and you go precision build, you're probably gonna get a might ISO on your second time. That's weird, right? That's kind of weird. Like I had that happen with Hawkeye, for example, which is what actually inspired the build that I put on the channel. So it's something I
interesting.
it's something I want to look into a little bit. Could just be coincidence every time, but that is sus. Like
Very sus.
so But yeah, so I'll be trying to look into that. So what do you think? Kind of. So are you done for Avengers then for a little bit until the raid comes out, or would you say that you're kind of just like doing your own thing, and when news comes out, you just kind of cover it like normal?
Probably. I mean, I usually most of the time anyways voice my biggest concerns on like Twitter and stuff more than a video because I won't lie to you. A lot of the stuff that I have to say put in a video will sound to people like I'm complaining, but it genuinely is usually something that I think people would listen to. But I usually opt out and say let's not. But yeah, unless it's like something like, oh, new suits are out, maybe I'll cover it. But for the most part, it'll be pretty quiet, but you'll still see, some hopefully interesting videos regarding some of these upcoming games.
Yeah, for sure. It's good that you kind of you're aware that you've got sort of other avenues to be able to go down. Like obviously you mentioned Spider Man and stuff like that, which is really cool. What was your reaction to seeing Spider Man in that stream? Next, obviously we've spoken a little bit about it, but what was kind of like your quick reaction just while watching the PlayStation showcase? Because I think you got to see mine.
Yeah,
So
I definitely did. Okay, so while I didn't scream, I was like quiet and shocked at the same time. And I was at the same time analyzing that trailer like while they were showing it, and I was just like, okay, bam, bam, we got this back, we got this back. Ooh, they're gonna do this. And I was like, a lot of people think that it's just a CG trailer, or at the time they thought it was a CG trailer before they said it was real time PS5, and that's even better, even crazier. But like, I was like, wow, okay, there's potential suit takedowns coming back, there's team takedowns coming back. This is gonna be crazy. This is gonna be crazy, and it's just like, wow, they really are raising the bar with this game. And the fact that Miles Morales as a game was as good as it was, and is even probably going to have everything that came with that game taken to stage 20 is going to be pretty insane.
I agree. I agree completely. Would you? So, who's your favorite Spider-Man then out the two, Miles or Peter, in this universe, or just all of them?
And all of them?
Yeah. So,
Okay, well,
so,
but
so combine it as like, your favorite things from Peter in all mediums and Miles. Like, who would you, out of all of them, mostly go to? If you know what I mean.
it probably okay. It would be Peter just because relatability, right?
Yeah.
It would be Peter Parker just because of relatability. But if I was to go even on a deeper level, it would probably be Miles for sure.
I love the fact like I know this should be like an Avengers community voices, but fuck it. Is that like so I grew up with Peter Parker, right? Like the first like
Mhm.
film I ever remember is watching Spider-Man 1 because I was born in 2000 and that was right around the corner.
You're
So,
born in 2000?
yeah, I'm a baby.
You're like a few months younger than me then. What the hell? We're both the year of the dragon. What the hell?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I hope that doesn't make you feel old now. But yeah, no. So I obviously grew up with Peter, whereas like my nephew, is like, how old is he? Like 4 or 5, and he's like, so I say, oh look, you've got Spider Man, and he's like, it's Miles, Miles. I'm like, oh, that's cute, because like for him, it's like he Miles is his Spider-Man. Like he grew up and it's
Right.
all about Miles, whereas for me it's Peter, and I can't change that because I'm a big sucker for like just everything that Peter's done, but I still like Miles, whereas my nephew's the opposite because he grew up with Miles. So I think I like that. I like how sort of Miles is kind of now, just due to time, able to stand on his own 2 feet and be loved by like kids just as much as Peter was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So that's
Exactly.
awesome. So okay, so let's drift into the community side of Avengers a little bit, right? Because obviously that is kind of what this show is all about. So, what was your introduction to the community? Who was the first people you started speaking to? Like, I just want to know your story when it comes to the Marvel's Avengers community.
All right. Story wise, let's see. When I became more social with people, at least, because I used to just be in my own corner when I was talking about Avengers, I would say between that Avengers group chat we have, at least like Tank, there was Cole, there was another person named Levi on there on Twitter, and that's kind of where I started because we had been talking about the beta of the game. And then it kind of evolved into like eventually hearing about Miller, right? And I was like, oh, let's see what he's up to. Who is this guy, right? That was between the whole Milkman conspiracy theory dude who was like changing his profile pics. I don't know how many of you remember that, but
I
then I
remember that.
eventually of High Ruler, and I was like, who the fuck is a simple podcast and who is High Ruler? And eventually they're the same person. I was like, wow, I can't believe I couldn't put that distinction together. And then, eventually it evolved into actually joining like the official Discord, High Rulers Discord, and other fan Discords, and eventually Reddit, and just eventually just trying to meet who are these other people that are talking about Avengers, because I want to be with those people. I want people that are just as invested into the game as me. And eventually I found those people, and it's just evolved into being more inclusive with everybody now, as opposed to how it was back, let's say, last May. Again, last May, I think the only person that I was watching that talked about Avengers at the time was Caboose.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, that's kind of the cool thing as well, like about the kind of YouTubers that cover Avengers and stuff like that. Is you have kind of like the really big named people like Caboose and so on, but they'll always move on to cover like DC stuff and Spider-Man and so on and so forth. But it's like it's
Right.
always nice to kind of have like that home community bunch of like people that are just kind of like Avengers, Avengers, Avengers sometimes, and those are people that you can
Yeah.
kind of, build a bond with and move on to other things, like when Avengers right now is having its quiet spell. So that's really cool. So we were speaking a little bit about this topic that I want to talk to you about before we started. And I am so excited because you have mentioned in your past, for people who don't know, that you used to work at McDonald's before. Was this during YouTube time or was this like before?
It was during, yeah, I was in high school. Like, I started YouTube when I was 16, and yeah, so technically, yeah, high school working period, kind of like that.
Yeah, so okay, so what what was that like? Like, what is it like working at McDonald's? Because I know you're an avid hater of the
Yes.
Mac. So I want to know why is that is. I need to hear the full details.
Okay, so starting there, right? It's okay, right? Like the pay, it's whatever. $12 an hour at that time, I think, was pretty good, but anything you can get, I guess, is decent. But as I started working there, I just noted a lot of fails, like a lot of things wrong with McDonald's, at least that location I worked at. From having incidents where and if you don't know what this is, it's a little time tracker. So it's a piece of paper that keeps track of time and labels. And we used to have those, and the people in the kitchen that cook the food had them. And I had a customer come up to me and they showed me their burger and it had a piece of paper in it that was a timestamp. And I was like, how does that get in there? You have to actually physically and mentally want to put that in the middle of a burger for that to happen. And that's one thing that first just caught my eye on the first week working there. And then,
The first
right, there's
week. Oh my god.
yeah. And the kitchen, not kitchen, the like the drink area where you make the smoothies and the frappuccinos or whatever. Uh let's just say a lot of teenagers work at these McDonald's, so they're not interested in cleaning things. And the blender that blends the smoothies and the frappuccinos typically don't get cleaned out. So uh, you're
uh,
gonna have a smoothie mixed in with a coffee type drink, and you probably won't taste it, but it's the fact that it's there that bothers me. And it's like, did you just send that out? Like, why wouldn't you clean the blender first? We have two of them. You can swap them out when you need to clean them. That's the whole point of it. And it's so inconsistent back there because of the people who don't care when they're working. And then you have managers and supervisors who just don't care about the environment. And like, this might get into some weirder territory, but let's just say, and I'll leave it at this, that there was an older person dating a younger person who that type of relationship is technically illegal, and the people that worked in that building approved of it. Let's just say
oh
that.
my
So
god. Oh
I had
my
to yeah, I had to get out of there. I
god.
had to get out of there.
God, and you were like, you were were you 16 at the time? Do you say
I
16,
was this
17?
at this time I was 18. I had been working there since I was like what 17, but like yeah, I was 18 by the time I had gotten to this particular incident with the people dating. And just keep in mind that this McDonald's was not too far away from my school. So these people that
Oh
were doing
God.
that,
Ugh.
yeah, I knew them on a different level than just being like, oh, this is an employee or coworker from work. No, this is somebody I go to school with. And I was just like,
Jesus.
yeah, there that last part is just a lot deeper. Like if you really want me to explain it, I don't want to put it on here, but like
I,
I could tell you on Twitter.
I was gonna
It's
say,
weird.
yeah, just send me a
It
message
was a weird.
after. Ugh. Oh God! Like, okay, so realistically though, it sounds like it wasn't a McDonald's issue, like a McDonald's primarily. It just sounds like you had a really bad experience. Like, oh God.
Yeah, I mean, like from all the McDonald's that I have in my area that I have ever went to, like I've never had to transfer to work at a different one, but I've been able to like see the same consistencies in terms of the quality of food, right?
Hmm.
And let's just say this, if you notice your food is like very hard, like the bread on a burger, it just means it's been sitting on the hot plate for like the last hour or two and they just haven't bothered changing it to give you a fresh one. And they won't do that until you actually ask. The fries, the grease probably won't get changed until like the end of the day. It'll just be sitting in there, probably bad. The French fries, you want to get some unsalted French fries. Do you know what they do? They take the salted French fries and they dip them back in the oil to get the salt off. And 90% of the time, nobody says anything, but it still has salt on it technically. So
So
there are
if
some.
I ever get like this is such a weird. You know what? It's fine because this is an episode about you anyway. But like, so if I ever get like a tray of chips, right,
Mhm.
fries for Americans, uh, and so I go and eat, and it's not very salty because I like salty chips, right? But if it's not, does that mean that they're like? What does that mean? Do they forget to salt it, or have they already put it in the oil?
It depends. Some McDonald's have two separate trays that they actually utilize correctly. There's supposed to be an unsalted tray that has no salt in it, and that's where they get your fries from. But sometimes
Ah.
they don't bother actually using it for that reason, and they just both have salt in them, and they just take the ones that have salt and refry them, I guess. And yeah, you can get lucky with it though. It depends. Sometimes there are some really good employees, and they just actually do their job. But sometimes, no.
It's weird, isn't it? Because you can always like so like the McDonald's that I go to. This we've been talking about McDonald's for like 10 minutes, but like I can so you can see the back like where everyone's cooking and stuff like that. But unless you're in the
Mhm.
know, you don't really know what they're doing is wrong. So they could be doing like what you said about putting it back in the oil, stuff like that. But you wouldn't know because you're not looking for that and you don't know. So you just be like, oh, they're just frying
Exactly.
some chips. But like they're actually just
Yeah,
doing something
yeah.
really gross. Yeah, no. So that's pretty. That's weird. Like, okay. So what else did you do then before you kind of while you were doing YouTube? Like, what's your job right now?
Okay, so I can't say the company, but I can tell you what I kind of do. So, like, when I first started this job that I'm working at, I was working in developing an internal application for the whole business, right? And I was working with coding, so I was like doing front end development on the UI. So, like, think of Marvel's Avengers title screen with like all the tabs and stuff. Think of something like that, but on a website. So that's what I was doing at first. And I
Okay.
learned how to code and whatnot. I got into this job via an internship though. So it was a lucky thing that happened to me. But anyways, yeah, I did that, and then currently now I've been swapped into a different team, and I actually do quality assurance testing. So I know sometimes when you see me on Twitter and I'm talking about like, oh, this is might be what's going on with Avengers and how they're doing their stuff. That's because I'm just using my own experience working in both development and now quality assurance testing to put together some missing holes that they don't always explain what their process is. Because now that I look at it from a business standpoint, some of the decisions they make sense, but are also bad.
I think the thing is with Avengers is it's never been like the case of this is it's kind of weird because for me, like, so say for example the resource rework, right? People are kind of in this perspective that it's just to set up for the fragment boosters, it's just to set up for more fragments. Business wise, to make more money, not a bad idea. It's not, right. It is
Right.
for us as a community because we don't want to have to
Yeah.
fucking be made to buy fragment boosters, right? But for people who don't follow along, so just random Timmy that logs on one day, right, and he's like, oh, I need fragments to do this. Oh, look, a fragment booster in the marketplace. Mom, I need your credit card. Like, it's business wise it makes sense, but in regards to optics, in regards to how it looks, it's not a good idea. And I think that that's kind of the thing that Avengers gets wrong, is it doesn't know which one's which. It thinks that, like,
Right.
if it's a good business move, people are just like it. And it's the same with the ding, that sort of stuff back in the day. And then XP
Woo.
boosters, it's like, okay, you know, fair enough, but then you went back on
Yeah.
it because it's a good business move. And I just think that, like, yeah, it's difficult to be able to understand that. So I think, like you said, it's like they're business moves, but they're not very good.
Yeah. And I
So,
mean, like, at the end of the day, for a lot of people, they misconstrued information, and I think they forget that there is a business. It's not just developers making all the decisions. They hardly get to make any decisions, to be honest with you.
mm,
They give ideas, but at the end of the day, like a director, like Phil, for example, I mean, he's going to give ideas, but if the business at the top says, "Okay, green light that you're going to get it," but otherwise they're going to be like, "Oh, I don't think that's a good investment. Let's do this instead," and it's going to get put into their pipeline. So at the end of the day, they're saying, yes, we would like to do that, but we're not talking to the people who actually should be hearing this. And they're not getting that information, I don't think, properly, because they can only pass that information along in their meetings. But if they're not hearing it from a collective fan base and saying, we want this instead of this, why are you doing this? It's really kind of just sitting up there in a cloud, never to be picked from.
probably one of the awkward things about work from home as well, because, like, when you're in an office, you can kind of collectively as a team turn your computer screens around and be like, look, we told you. Do you know what I mean? To, like, the big guy who can then go and, like, report it.
Exactly.
Whereas for this case, it's like, uh say, I don't know, poor Andy sees like an entire list of quality ideas, right? And he's like, okay, everyone agrees with this, right? So now I've got to contact this person, who then has to contact this person, and then eventually get to this person. And obviously, when you've got, because bless Andy, he's not got a very good internet connection. so
You're not
so
wrong. You're not
you
wrong.
mix that in with the fact that it has to be, a singular kind of bit of information needs to be travelled to different people, because I don't know this for a fact, but I hardly doubt that Andy has the number or email or whatever of every single CD worker, right? I don't know that. It could be the case, but I'd imagine that information would have to get passed on to bigger people. Like, so this person is responsible for telling this person something, that person is responsible for telling this person something. So I imagine that
Right.
information gets a little bit like kind of mixed up in the process, which is probably why, like, until they go back into the office, I imagine the information that they should be getting is going to be kind of not directed properly, at least in my opinion. But that's just speculation at the end of the day. So, uh, just back to the community real quick. So when you started to, like, you know, play kind of in the community as well, who would you say sort of like who would you say in the community? Now this is gonna be a weird question. Who would you say in the community is kind of like one of your favorites for, like, guides, right? Builds, these different sort of categories and stuff like that. I'm putting you on the spot with that, but again, like I said before, just because that person isn't mentioned, so say, like, for build, you say, oh, Lejeune, right? Just because you didn't mention Tony Bing doesn't mean you hate his stuff. You know what I mean? So, like, who would you say that you personally would go to for those things?
uh let's see. I I will say it would have to be Lejeune,
Mm.
but I don't focus on builds anymore. So it probably would defer to a little bit of Bob Duck and Weave. I will say that.
Yeah, Bob's great. Like, In fact, this is actually a pretty good segue for us to go to a little bit about a conversation we had like the other week. So, for people who aren't aware, Bob, I feel really rude forgetting the other content creators because I normally just said this is Bob's talk. They did either way. There was like a YouTube versus Twitch Twitter space conversation. Um, and they were talking about kind of the benefits of focusing on YouTube versus Twitch, etc. And I remember me and Burst were talking about that quite a lot, and I loved the conversation that we had because it was very much like it was really motivational. We were both talking about our goals and stuff like that. So for people who, well, I mean, no one else was in that conversation but us. But if you're comfortable in kind of explaining it, what are your goals for the channel now?
For the channel, it's okay. When I started covering Miles, I looked at the projections, right? From what is it? It's one of those YouTube analytic things that you can project your stats for the next year, right? Now, it said realistically I could hit 10K. And that
Mm,
was like a big goal. And I was like, I don't know. That sounds like a lot for somebody like myself who does do a full-time job and does try to do YouTube at the same time. So I started out small and I was like, let me just see if I can start trying out building more of a community first that I know is going to be dedicated to the stuff I do. And right now, I would say my goal is still dedicated to that because I've just even opened up like my first Discord, which I've had people ask me to do before, but I was uncomfortable because I didn't know how to navigate that space yet. So
mm.
right now, my goal still for all of my channels, Twitch, YouTube, you know, even technically TikTok, but those are all dedicated to trying to build a community of people that are wanting to view the content that I have and just, I don't know, have fun together, be able to talk and do all that good stuff.
That's awesome. Like, obviously with the watch parties as well, is I imagine that's quite a personal experience with the community that you're wanting to build. How is it sort of doing the watch parties? Because I know that obviously you mentioned, about the anime videos you did and stuff like that. How do you kind of protect yourself from copyright with the watch parties? As well as like, how is it sort of interacting with people while you do the watch parties?
Right. So in the beginning of the watch party saga, I was doing it from a perspective of okay, if you have a device, we're gonna react to it at the same time. I'm gonna do a countdown that way so we can be on the same kind of timeline for it. But that model, it works, but it doesn't work at the same time. I think you have to kind of incorporate the viewing party of it so people actually can see it with you at the same time. And I think that's where the idea of Discord kind of came into play as well, is now being able to stream that video. Let's say What If, for example, which I've been doing for the last 4 weeks that it's been out so far. Uh I stream the episode via Discord while streaming actually on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, just so people who come in feel like they're welcome into the Discord to kind of talk about it and stuff like that. So managing the chats can be a little rough sometimes, but I find it more enjoyable when people are just chilling in the gaming segment of it. And then even if they just go silent while we're watching the episode, I totally get it. Like episodes like What If sometimes and other seasons of the other shows were banging. So I totally get it. But it's just having those people there, being able to come in, that's been really cool about it.
How do you kind of like, so obviously as a content creator, normally, like I can vouch for this, it's very difficult to stay quiet. You know what I mean? Because like for me, I find it really awkward to have any sort of silence, even if, something's happening. So like when I stream, something I've got a problem with is that if there's any silence at all, say chat's just not really very active, I'm just wanting to chill out, but I thought I'd stream a game. I feel personally really awkward about not speaking. So when those sort of moments of like quiet happen, do you feel like that? Do you feel like you have to fill the gap, or are you kind of like, I get it, they're watching it, so I'll stay quiet too?
At least for the watch parties in particular, I just go off as if I'm reacting to it. Like if somebody pops in chat, usually I'll read it really quick and then I'll go back to how I was acting before, just because you're in the moment, at least of watching that. But like if it's, for example, like a gaming stream, like let's say Tuesday. Well, not Tuesday. Let's say last week or Sunday, for example. Uh, I stream and maybe the chat's pretty quiet, but I know that there are people there. I just talk as if I'm literally talking to a neighbor, like someone sitting next to me for the most part. And I just kind of go off on what I have in my head just so it's not too silent. And, if somebody comes in, hopefully they like the topic that's being randomly talked about for some reason. And that's kind of how I go about it. I never try to leave it too quiet that it's like, oh, it's a stream that's just somebody playing a game, because I feel like it's harder for people to want to stay in there if it's like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I try to manage that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fair enough. And again, like I keep mentioning, is that you seem, very sort of soft-spoken person. So I feel like if you were the kind of person that was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll speak through these anyway," I don't think it'd be as bad as someone who has kind of like a big booming voice and a big sort of like, is a little bit mental, like myself or whatever, doing this. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of, and again, I think that that kind of makes you approachable with the way you are. If you do these watch parties for the sake of other people, if you're like, okay, I get that they're watching this and stuff like that, it kind of makes people more drawn to you because they're able to experience something cool alongside you, if you know what I mean. So the fact you've been able to
Yeah.
turn something quite universally known but turn it into kind of your thing is, it's awesome because people, they know you as a watch partier, for example, right? So that's,
All
that's
right.
that's awesome. Like, and hopefully that's able to sort of expand, even further. So what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to be a YouTuber, just a content creator? You had kind of advice back in the day. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start making content now? It doesn't even have to be Avengers or anime, just YouTube in general.
I would say if you want to start doing anything like that, like content creation, definitely feel okay with what you're putting out. You'll grow with what you do in anything you do. But at the same time, I feel like for anybody starting, you should always like try to just get some base knowledge of how the YouTube algorithm works. That's like the most important thing that I think anybody starting out should know. Like how does tags impact your videos? How does the title impact your videos? Keywords. What kind of thumbnail are you planning to do? Attention grabbers. I know people will throw the word out like clickbait, but that is what YouTube is. A lot of it is
Mm.
clickbait. I mean, that's the point. You're supposed to have someone want to click on your video. Just don't be somebody that falsely advertises what your video is supposed to be about. I think a lot of people try that and then they have people reacting negatively to what they're doing. And it's kind of hard to have that balance of, oh, it's too clickbaity or it is not clickbaity enough. You know what I mean? I think just get that base knowledge of how that works and you're good to go. You can make anything you want on YouTube, but as long as you know what the algorithm and how that works, you can put it out there and it'll get viewed by anybody at that point. It may not be viewed by 100 people randomly all at once, but there are times when a certain keyword will randomly pick up one day, and that video will randomly even pop off and get like 1,000 views, 100 more views, anything like that, just off of something randomly booming one day.
Yeah, like I agree with you about the clickbait thing as well, because obviously, we know people who are in the Avengers community who
Yeah,
who are notorious for it, but we also know people like, so myself, I made a little bit of a similar mistake with a Spider-Man video I made not too long ago, where I went through the blog, the original PlayStation blog, and I read through it, and I was like, the time has come, because I was really just excited. I was like, this is it, Spider-Man's on the way, time has come. But without realizing it, people were kind of like, look, that was a little bit too much. And I mean, I personally got like offended by it for a little bit, because I was like, no, but I knew what I meant. Like, I didn't mean it like that. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
So it's kind of, so like you said, sometimes it's like, if you overdo it, people are kind of look down on you a little bit, even if you don't mean to overdo it. But if you straight up just say, I don't know, I read through Spider-Man blog and add content, it's boring. That sounds really boring.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
like you said, I mean, if I was to give any advice, I would probably say the same thing as well. Big bright, colourful thumbnail and a title that grabs you without kind of, false advertising. Because if I said, like, oh, Spider Man gameplay or official brand new Spider Man news, then, fair enough, right? Because that's just not, it's not the case. But yeah, so I agree with that completely. So obviously that's kind of like the YouTube side of it. So what about streaming? Because obviously, those are very different things, as we heard in the YouTube versus Twitch speech. So what advice would you give to streamers that want to kind of like, get started?
I think I can speak more maybe for YouTube. Twitch, I'm still getting used to, so that's one I probably couldn't give you the best info on. But
Hmm.
you could definitely go check out Bob Duck and Leaf. He has a lot to say about Twitch. But anyways, YouTube wise, I think it's a little bit more of the same. Like, for example, I did a little bit of research before I started doing any type of watch parties, and this was when WandaVision was first starting to be, the episode one was getting ready to be dropped. And I was like, there's not a lot of people talking about anything like watch parties. There's not a lot of people that are doing watch parties for anything currently right now that I see. And it's kind of like discovering what type of things are at the top of the chain. So, like, what is the first result you see at the top of your YouTube search bar when you type in a certain thing? I kind of use that to my advantage, and that's kind of how I started the watch party, by seeing that that was a very low, uh, let's just say, topic at the time, right? And eventually, of course, when people started doing it, but yeah, use that to your advantage when you're streaming. Like, what is the top of the search bar for you? And also, again, keywords. And if people like your stream, it'll go out to more people. Like, you need to really kind of like self advertise yourself as you're streaming, because it's kind of how YouTube works with promoting your stream. It's like the more likes and more people that are coming in there, that's kind of how it gets put on the recommended tabs or whatever
Yeah,
for
yeah.
people. And you really have to, like, I know it gets annoying to say, hey guys, don't forget to like the stream, but like that's literally all YouTube is like the video, dis dislike the video, like the video in any way that boosts the metrics for it, and they're just gonna send it off somewhere for someone to view. So I know people don't like doing it, but you're gonna have to get used to doing that a lot. At
Well,
least midstream, just say it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, try to get people in there.
I kind of, just a little insight into the giveaway that I had done on my last video. Like, I'll be completely honest. The reason I made it a comment thing is because that, more eyes on it, right? But that also in turn, you give more because there's more people that have a chance then, right? So it's kind of, that's a
Right.
reason I made it a comment based sort of system rather than it just be like, oh, message me on Twitter or something like that. Because then,
Mhm.
it's a way of like more people see it, so that benefits me, but it also benefits people that can come in and be like, oh shit, and then they can make a comment. So I think that like you're absolutely right. I mean, every single video, every single thing is like, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Like, so
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, people always, some people cringe at that and stuff like that, but some people genuinely forget. And now that YouTube, I don't remember when they added this, but YouTube and your analytics added how many people watch that aren't subscribed, and for me, it's like fucking 76%. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so sometimes you do have to remind people, and that's, I think that's just the way it is, and I think that, with Twitch, obviously, you can't do that because it costs money, right? So that you can't be like, sub to me, give me money, whereas YouTube, it's like, it's different, you know what I mean? There's not really any avenue that kind of costs
Right.
anything unless you're doing like a super chat or something like that. So yeah, no, I agree with that. So okay, next question, right? And this is kind of one that I remember asking Sonic, but I'm very interested to know what you say. Uh, where do you see your channel or yourself in general in like 5 years time? Do you still think you'll be sort of covering similar things? Do you think you'll even still be doing YouTube? Like, what's kind of your thoughts on that?
I definitely, okay. I see myself still utilizing YouTube. I don't know how much of the same content it'll still be though. I've always thought about, like, what kind of stuff would I continue to do and what would I change about the channel? And I mean, I've always liked the idea of being more variety and still being discussion and gaming, but
Hmm.
it's one of those things where gaming can be a little bit, I feel, tiring for people, just because there are a lot of gaming channels out there that will play through the same thing, and you'll see like 20 different channels do the same thing. So it's always that thing of, what can I make different about myself, right? Like, I don't totally utilize like face cam right now on videos. And that I heard, is more it puts a more personal experience on YouTube videos and just streams in general too. So I've always wondered how can I utilize maybe doing that. But it's hard to say maybe 5 years from now because 5 years from now, I'm still pretty young. I'm still getting my life together.
Hmm.
I'm trying to figure out a place where I would get my own place. Um, it's an interesting conversation to have, but I definitely still see myself doing content creation around games, and I still want to do more around different media like TV shows and stuff like that. Besides just doing watch parties, because I don't do enough of it for discussions, and that's kind of something I still need to, I think, take into account for myself. Is what is the things I'm lacking in right now that I could bring out more later?
I think discussions on sort of like, TV shows and stuff, especially the Marvel ones, would actually like it work quite well with the dynamic of your channel as well, because obviously you do a lot of Marvel stuff at the minute. So I think that would kind of be like a good avenue to branch down and stuff like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if Burst starts doing discussion videos on MCU content, remember, I said something. Like,
Yep, he gets a 5% cut
I get the
of
five,
all
I
paychecks.
get the 5% cut of all paychecks. Okay, so when I asked you, because this is something I genuinely want people to know, but it's only up to you if you want people to know that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this really quickly, like to the recording, and then I'm going to ask you this question. So just give me a second. Okay, so I quickly unpaused it there. Just had to pause it really quick. So if you wonder why there's a weird cut, just wanted to ask Burst if this is all right, which luckily he said it is. So, you've told me before that you turned monetization off on your channel. Obviously, it hit the goals, hit the YouTube partnership and stuff like that. I really want people to know, why did you turn it off? What's kind of your situation with that now? And, what's the thought process behind sort of like, I'm not going to get monetized for this, or, like anything like that? Because it's really, really interesting. Because I mentioned this to you while I had it paused, that normally people get monetized, they're like, shit, you know what I mean? And they run for it, they go crazy. So,
All right.
what's it like for you?
So for me, listen, I will be as honest as possible. The first YouTube paycheck I ever got was last year from covering Miles Morales. Now, if you want the clear numbers of how much I got paid altogether, it was probably close to like $2,000 for that specifically. But here's the thing, as a person who has to do taxes and stuff now, it is very difficult trying to work around like what is taxable, what is not taxable. How do you go through claiming YouTube as a business and stuff like that? And that was like a very stressful thing when I had to do my taxes. And I was almost on the line of still continuing to keep monetization. And at
Mm,
that time, I was also receiving offers from people to do like was it branding, merchandise stuff, but I was like, yeah, I don't know. That's a lot still on my plate for me, who's still small and just trying to figure out this still world of like what is now capable now that you have monetization and that you utilize it more. It's a lot. Like I won't lie to you. I even that game, what is it, Kina Bridge of Spirits? Like they gave an opportunity to test the build of it, and
yeah.
I unfortunately turned it down just because I didn't feel comfortable with being in that setting yet. I still was just adapting to this new world of getting those type of emails. So hopefully the person who got that opportunity and took it ran with it. But that's just a lot of stress for somebody my size. And also, again, working a full time job. And eventually I came to this conclusion that until I can figure out how the taxes and stuff like that work for YouTube, I would decide to like take monetization. Anything that was from, I would say, January, February has not been monetized at all. There's still videos that have the monetization on them, and I got another paycheck last month for like $100 just from whatever videos were accumulating there. But anything you've seen now has no monetization. It's just because it does reduce the stress of views. You need views and you need clicks to get revenue up. But it makes it a lot more enjoyable doing this and not having to worry about it. And I've had people before ask me in streams like, "Oh, don't you have a donation link or super chat?" Nope. I don't I don't feel comfortable like taking that money from people. And I know people just want to do it. I do it myself sometimes, but in a way, I just feel weird about it right now. And I probably will still continue to keep that channel unmonetized for a while. And even now, YouTube demonetized my channel probably for being inactive for a while without having monetization on it because they didn't give me a reason why anything was taken off.
Yeah.
They just said copyrighted content, too much of it. Okay, what copyrighted content? Tell me. They didn't provide any evidence for it. So I can reapply for the partner thing at the end of the month. I think September 25th is when I can reapply for it. I may do it, but it's just one of those things where it's like being pressured of trying to make money on YouTube, I think can hurt you a little bit, especially when you're trying to make videos that are getting a lot of attention and when they do, it's like, man, I could have made like a lot more on that, right? Like I could have easily gotten 120, $200 or something for it. And this is why I don't even use the YouTube Studio app as much because it immediately shows you like, oh, this is how much you made off of such and such. And I'm just like, I don't want to worry about that right now. I just want to worry about the fact that people enjoy the video and not,
Mm.
oh, it's getting this many clicks and stuff like that. Cause that is where I start to get frustrated. And it's like, okay, take a break, sit down, relax. And yeah, so I've made that decision to just do that with my channel. And I don't know. It'll be something for a while still. It may change in the future, but as far as I go right now, the decision is final. So, in case anybody was wondering why you never see an ad on my channel, that's why.
Well, first of all, like, kudos to just being able to, like, because it's such a, it really shows kind of a person that you are, where you're like, you know what, it's too much stress, take it off, but I still want to make content regardless whether I make money or not. That's great. You know what I mean? We've all come up from that. Like, just because I hit 1,000 subscribers doesn't mean I'm like, oh, ad revenue. It's cool. It is cool. Like, I'm really excited about these opportunities that will come up. But like, the fact that you still want to pursue it, whether or not a paycheck comes out, is awesome, and it just shows that, like, humble beginnings, still humble now, and that's brilliant. And that was, and to be honest, I mentioned this to you, but I want people to know here as well, is that a reason why, out of the people that wanted to be in it on the Twitter post I made, and I just went to you even though you didn't ask for it, was because you didn't ask for it. It's because you went, oh, Layla, what about you? Like, so you didn't think to yourself, oh, fucking, it's good opportunity here. Do you know what I mean? Like, rubbing your hands together, like, oh, maybe.
Right.
You were like, yo, Layla, and that would have helped me, that would have been awesome. But I was like, nah. I can't have it. I can't have Burst trying to help me get, like, absolute, bangers when, just because, I've always said that you're one of the most underrated people in this community because you don't try and take opportunities, you just try and improve the scenario. So, like, for example, like, obviously, if I had later on here, I'd be able to advertise it, Crystal Dynamics, community person, da 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 da. But, you never went, oh, I'll do it, because it would be beneficial to you. That sounds really arrogant, but you know what I mean? Like, the new people would be able to see,
Yeah.
even if it's, like, two people. And it's because of that attitude that you've got that I was like, this fucking guy, like, he's so nice. Like, I can't, and it was then, I remembered the streamer weekend. I was like, I would like Burst on. And, I said that, because my mum and dad are quite invested in my YouTube channel. So when I was like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this community voices with Burst today, they were like, who's Burst? I went, well, and I told her, just everything and stuff like that. So, oh, he sounds really nice. I was like, he is nice. He's a humble
I
guy,
appreciate that.
and like, if there's, obviously everyone who's been on this series so far, I am friends with, including yourself. Like, so it's made it a lot easier. But, like, for example, no disrespect with Hero, I've never had a voice conversation with him. We only interacted a little bit, and I think like the reason why I made that point earlier about you being quite approachable is because this is the first conversation we've ever had voice to voice, and I already feel like, oh, it's Burst. You know what I mean? It's Burst, my friend from Twitter.
Yeah.
It's Burst. Like, and it's it's quite nice to feel that way when you've got someone in this community like yourself, where it feels kind of like, oh, it's my friend. You know what I mean? Like an actual
Right,
friend, not sort of
right.
like, because I could count on just one hand how many friends I feel like I actually have. Because you get anxiety, don't you? Right, especially over the internet, where it's like, are they or are they not? You know what I mean? Will they still
Yeah.
be? And you know, with yourself, it doesn't feel any ulterior motives. There literally can't be, because you keep trying to push everyone else over yourself.
Hey,
So
I just like to see I like the growth, like,
yeah.
from being, at least in this community, day 1, like, still comparing it to what I saw in the anime gaming community, this community is a lot better, right? I've seen some growth, I've seen people change, like, oh, I'll throw your name out there, Allfather, I've seen you change, like, you're even more approachable than you were before, and a lot of people appreciate, like, how much you have grown and developed as well, just, you know, having more of even a broader perspective of things in the game or just the community in general, like,
Mm.
that's been really interesting to see, and a lot of other people as well, like, I know people have their own perceptions and how they think about certain things, but everybody I've seen that I do interact with, I've seen take a very interesting approach and see how they grow, and I just love it, you know what I mean? Like, I like being a part of that.
For sure, and you know, I think I would speak for everyone when I say that it's lovely for you to also be a part of that. So, you know, again, it's that sort of case where, like, the reason I always do these in community voices, because people might think, oh, well, you're just kissing up to your guest. It isn't that. It's the fact that, like, when this community has the dark side to it, right, where it has the people who are quite negative, quite nasty, it's always important to highlight positive people. It's always important to highlight people that just aren't assholes. You know what I mean?
Right.
And sort of tell them that, like, thank you for not being like that. And I think that's important, you know, like even though that should just be like, shouldn't be the case, obviously. It's just, you know, I feel like people need to appreciate the good people who are here, because, like, unfortunately the way is with sort of this community is, if I do a video saying I love Avengers, you know, people would be like, "Oh, you shit." But if I do a video like slagging something off, people are like, "I love this video. Keep speaking your truth, King." And it's like, no, just you know what I mean. Positivity is so nice as well, and I think that thanks to people like yourself, thanks to people like Hero, thanks to people like Suki, Sonic, Hyrule, it's always, you know, you always get that backseat of, like, you know, us. There's a lot of positives in this community, and it makes you want to stick around.
Right.
So that's, you know,
Definitely,
that's great.
definitely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for today. Burst, is there anything you would like to say before I do the signing off? You know, if you want to, plug your stuff really quickly, because normally I do it because I forget to, like, go, oh, go ahead, and I end up messing something up. So if you want to, like, plug all your stuff, you know, final words and stuff like that, then you have the floor.
For sure, for sure. Let me just say this, I'll say it again. Tachyon missions, guys, when you play Tachyon missions, you need to play as if you're playing as a flying character, you better go for time. I better not see you on the ground 90% of the time. And in Tachyon missions and OLTs and raids, you do not go loot. We just go straight for the objective, okay? Get that through your heads. I'm sorry. Anyways, you guys can catch me on twitch.tv/burst_ZG. I only stream on there 1 to 2 times a week, but Tuesdays for now are dual streams on YouTube and Twitch for watch parties at 10:30, and we do the What If watch party right now. So definitely you can check that out. Discord, you can find that on my Twitter page. I do have TikTok now. It's kind of funny, but I just post game updates there. So if you want to follow me there and maybe see me post more midnights and stuff when that comes out, I'll definitely do that. But anyways, it's been an honor to be here, Stardust. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you, man. Like, you know, again, you were always on the radar, and I think, you know, again, like, what pushed it was the fact you didn't put yourself forward, but you put, you know, Layla forward. You know, just again, really quick, is something with community voices that I've noticed is that I feel like people ask because it's a platform and they can. But with you, but like with yourself, you've never gone, oh, what about community voices? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You've never done that. Like you've if anything, you might have said like, oh, that'd be cool, but you've never kind of gone, oh, Stardust. You know what I mean? Like, so that was straight away was like, yo, that's great. Like that's a quality that I love, because I've always been in the case of, if people have asked me before that Twitter post, I probably won't ever have them on, because it's like a bit weird to ask to be on a talk show. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like,
Yeah.
it's like a celebrity emailing Jimmy Fallon and being like, "Hey, can I be on your show?" It's weird. Like, so
Right.
I mean, obviously that sounded like quite a cocky comparison, but you know what I mean. So never doing that, and also trying to push names to do it, just made me think like, that's the sort of person I want on. So thank you for being the way you are. And I appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please check all of Burst's stuff. It will be all down in the description down below. The YouTube, the Twitch, the TikTok. Do you want me to? I'll put the TikTok on there. Why not? And comment down below anyone else you want to see on Community Voices. I do have another name booked very soon, but I don't like to talk about them in advance just in case they cancel and I don't want to disappoint anyone. Make sure to also enter the giveaway on the last video. It has a big brackets giveaway for Avengers merch. All you got to do is comment down below with your favorite Avengers character, and then you'll be in the running. That stream will be on Monday coming up, so make sure to tune in for that, see if you've got a chance of winning. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Voices, and I will see you all later. Peace.